All right, here we are in our project, and if you recall last time we created a folder called NPC, Quadbot, and we have all this stuff in there. What I'm going to do in this video is I'm actually going to use it as an example because we have multiple animations where we can do a 2D blend space. If you recall from before in our playable character, in our generic bot here, we actually have blend spaces here. We have a 1D, and then we started a different blend space that we never finished, which is the 4D one. And if we had a few more animations like side steps and stuff, we can revisit that. But I thought this would be a good time to sort of show that, how to do that now that we have a little bit more experience with animation. And just as a refresher, here's our 1D. So if I hold control and I go to the right, you can see our character's walking, and here's our left. So let's go ahead and close that out. And let's go back to NPC and in our Quadbot. All right, so let's go to our blueprints actually. And for now, let's go ahead and create, because I anticipate that we'll eventually have more than one blueprint. So let's right click and let's create a new folder and just call this NPC. And we'll go inside of here, and then we're going to create a new NPC, which blueprint, which is a player controller. Now, actually, let's go back in here. Let me close this for a second, because this is going to be controlled. I want to sort of review those things. So instead of NPC, I'm going to right click and create a new right click and create a new folder and call this PC. And I'll add Quadbot into this folder, and then I'll drag in later my actual playable characters from here into this PC folder. So I'm going to right click in here, and I'm going to create a new blueprint class, and it's going to be a character. And as you can see, a character is a type of pawn that includes the ability to walk around. All right, so let's go ahead and click on that. So character, and then I'm going to name this Quadbot. Oops, let's hit F2 on our keyboard. So Quadbot, and then underscore blueprint. And let's go inside of here. All right, and I'm going to dock this up here. All right, so let's go to mesh here, and you'll see skeletal mesh. And we're going to click this drop down here, and we're going to add Quadbot. And I'm going to move it down here. Now you'll notice Quadbot also, and I can scale that down just a little bit so it fits inside of here, should be facing, just like before, the direction of this arrow in order to be forward. So let's go ahead and type in -90 here, and then compile and save that. Let's go back into our scene and just drag Quadbot and drop them in. Now Quadbot, actually looks kind of tiny. Let's go back in here. I kind of want him to be a little bit more menacing. And also notice that the Quadbot is not touching the bottom of our capsule here. So if we go in here and we scale up our capsule, maybe 1.5 and 1.5 by 1.5, you can see it actually makes Quadbot quite a bit bigger. If we compile and save that, we look inside of here, you can see Quadbot is also bigger, right? And it looks like he's cutting through the floor, but actually what Quadbot's cutting into is that nav mesh. So I like that a little bit better. So let's go back into our blueprint. And actually something else I should point out is we could actually, I don't know why I didn't think about this before, is if you lock the scale, if I type this, make it all 1, but I can increase the capsule half height to like 90 or 100. And then I can actually just scale up my mesh here like that. And that's another way of doing it, where you can see here, actually, looks like Quadbot is still not. Scale him up a bit more, and then bring him down to the bottom of my capsule. All right, let's compile and save that. You can see, there you go. Quadbot's a pretty good size. I'll put it against this AI agent here just for double checking the height. Not bad. Looks like the character is facing the same direction as everyone else. I'm gonna hit F to focus. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so enough of that. Let's get back into here. All right, so, and I'm really just going along with what I did before, but it's good as a refresher for those of you who went for the other setup video. So I'm just gonna add a regular camera, just like before, and then I'm gonna add a spring arm. And I'm not gonna do a ton of re-explanation because I explained this before, but if you remember, the camera and the spring arm allows us to follow the little Quadbot around. Now we want the spring arm to be the parent of the camera, so I'm going to drag this up by middle mouse clicking or left clicking and dragging on top. Come on. I guess we could just switch this off. Drag camera, drop it under spring arm. There we go. And then camera under spring arm. There we go. So now the camera is following the spring arm, and you can see here that it set itself to a specific distance. And if you select spring arm here, you can see we can adjust the target arm length. Oops. I'm having some, I have a lot of things running and stuff rendering, so my computer's being a little glitchy. Forgive me. So you can see that we can set up the settings just like we did before. And let's do target offset. If you see we do 200, you can remember it's up here now. So we have sort of this view looking down at our so we just play with the settings just like last time. All right, so let's go ahead and compile and save this. Now, if you remember from last time, I'm gonna go ahead and delete this character here. And you see how it's showing sort of the screen here, but when I press play, it's going to default to the other character that we created, right? So here's this other character that we made. And so what I'm gonna do is actually create another game mode base. And I'm gonna delete this Quadbot out here for a second so that it's not obstructing my view. And I'm gonna right click inside of this player class, and I should really make another, here, let me go ahead and make another folder in here inside the blueprints for PC and just call this Quadbot. Just so that we could, you know, like we tend to forget, at least I do, you'll get pretty busy, or you'll, not necessarily busy, but you'll forget, you'll move on to other things, and you're like, oh my God, there's files everywhere. And Unreal has a lot of different components that go with things. But I want to switch it out so that it's not this same character here, right? And it's generally a good idea to create a new game mode base for each playable character. All right, I'm gonna right click in here and create a new blueprint class. And I'm gonna name it game mode base, or I'm gonna select game mode base here. And I'm just gonna name this Quadbot underscore game mode base, GMB. So you can create multiple of these. Like if I double click this, you can see there's a ton of different options here for the way you'd like to control certain characters. You can switch it up. But for now, just it's kind of a good practice for me is if you're going to have multiple character types and you want them to have different attributes, just make multiple game mode bases. If you remember last time in our 245 character, we have this game mode base here. Let's see. And I think we're using this one actually, this big example character. So I've been showing a couple different variations of this in other tutorials, but for now, so we have this Quadbot game mode base. All right, so let's open that up again. All right, so let's select our game mode base here. And let's see, we need the default parent class, which is this, or default pawn class here. And if we select this, we want to look for that Quadbot BP blueprint. So now this is connected, this Quadbot GMB is now connected to Quadbot BP. So let's compile and save that. All right, so back in Unreal, we want to go to settings, world settings, and we want to let it know, like right now we're using for our game mode override, Robot24 GMB. We want to use Quadbot GMB instead of that one. So if I go ahead and select Quadbot GMB, now in our world settings, it knows to point to this specific Quadbot. So now when I press play, you can see it's loading it in. Let me hit escape. But the problem is it's we kind of have to work on that camera being a little bit further away. It's a little bit, see how this is the view. So you can, in your Quadbot here, let's see, details, let's see, select that spring arm, and we can make the target offset here, length 500 maybe. It looks like it needs to be minus 500 here maybe. No, let's see, 500 and 800. And let's actually just go inside of this character and play with that view. And let's get it. Let's see. And so I typed in minus 45. We might have to play with these values a little bit more. But let's see, actually. Let's zero this out. Let's see if we could just rotate our spring arm. I think that was my main issue. I was adding attributes to the camera. So let's do 600 here. And then ooh, maybe that's a little too high. I'm going to pause the video and see if I find the right number for me. All right, so I think I found the best settings for me was 800 for the arm length and then just 150 for the offset here. So, and that gave me this view here. So now when I press play, you can see we start here. I'm going to go ahead and hit escape. And then I'm going to delete this one in the scene. And now when I press play, you can see we now are loading in this character. All right, so let's hook up the rest of the animations and so forth. Now, if you want this character to always be the one that's loaded, you can go to Edit Project Settings, and under Maps and Modes, here, you can see, let's see, default mode, game mode. We already have it set to our last one, but we can switch it to our Quadbot game mode, which is right here. And so now on every single level, it'll load up Quadbot. If you don't want it to be that way, you can just leave it as game mode or game mode base. And then on each level, you can have it switch out specific characters. But for now, we're going to be using either one of those. So I'll leave it up to you to pick which one you want for your character, which one you like better. So let's go ahead and close this out. All right, so next what we want to do is create some inputs to move our character. Now, if you remember last time, we went to Edit Project Settings, and we talked in detail about our these different inputs that are here. For now, I'm going to be just use these exact same inputs to make this character move. And to save time, because we've done this again before in the other character, if we look at our 245 character blueprint here, you can see that we have a bunch of oh, this is actually for a later example, but we have some character movement things that we set up before for moving forward, backwards. So I'm just going to highlight this character movement and camera movement, and I'm going to copy this. And luckily, this is going to be a problem. We're going to have to change this input axis lookup 245 and look right. Actually, I think we'll be fine to keep those. Let's see what we have to change here. We'll copy this and then we'll look for errors. So let's go into our, let me close this. We no longer need that GMB. But I'm going to copy these and let's go back into our Quadbot BP and go into the event graph. And let's just paste these down here. And let's compile and save and see what errors we get. We don't get any errors. And it looks fine. It's get control rotation. You can see the target itself, which is this Quadbot. And let's get this event out of here. We'll need that for later. But for now, let's test it. So let's go back to Untitled and let's press play here. And there is a little bit of some setup, if you remember before, with getting it to rotate right. And let's see. And actually, I forgot to set up any of the controls for that. So let's go back in here, save it. And actually, I looked over these camera movements. They should be fine. So if I go back in here, let's actually save this and let's press play. And yeah, if I click in the window, that was my problem. And I move left and right, you can see that. But as I move up and down, that's not working, if you recall from last time. So let's go back into our quad blueprint. All right, so if you remember from last time, what we did is we selected our spring arm and we used use pawn controller rotation. And actually something else I'm going to do is back on our Quadbot here is I'm going to turn off use controller rotation yaw for a moment. And I'll hit compile and save. And let's test that. I'm going to go ahead and press play. And now when I move my mouse left and right, up and down, you can see I have full control of my mouse, which is good. That's what we want from last time. I'm gonna go ahead and escape. Let's jump back into our Quadbot VP. All right, so let's take a look at this. Looks pretty good, actually. Let's go back in and press play. Now if I push my, oh yeah, there we go. Yeah, if I push my WASD key, my character's walking around. It's just not facing properly. So I think sometimes when you have to kind of compile and save a couple times and save your level. I'm gonna actually close this so we're not confused. So now we have a Quadbot with a camera. I'm gonna compile and save this. And I think sometimes that's what it is. If you you compile or you forget to save or whatever it is, it won't update. But I thought these should work, with the exception of those small changes we made to the spring arm and the Quadbot. Now I want to make it face the direction in which we're moving. So go ahead and select your character movement component. And what we're looking for is, orient rotation to movement. So let's make sure I didn't pass that up. I could just type it in the search actually just to save time. And check that on and compile and save that. Let's press play now. And there we go. As I move the arrow keys around, we have Quadbot moving. We have the character looking. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and hit escape. And let's go back in here again, Quadbot blueprint. All right, so let's go ahead and close this out. If you remember with this character here, let's see, our example character. This is the blueprints folder, forgive me. So inside of Play PC here, or actually just characters here, I should have dragged this in there, but it looks like I have a double in there. That's what I meant earlier about be careful of folder structure and things. You got to go back and clean it up. But anyway, we go back to generic bot, we go to animations. If you remember under this blind spaces, the 1D here, we created this, right? Where he goes from idle to walk. Well, what we want to do for Quadbot, and let's see, is we want to right click on this skeleton and we want to go to create and we want to do a 2-dimensional blend space, which is this one right here. And I'm just going to leave that as Quadbot, and then you can see blend space. So I'm going to actually just hit F2 on this, and I'm going to get rid of skeleton and just make this blend space. Because BS sounds bad. So anyway, quad spot blend space, and I'm going to go ahead and double click that. And you can see right off the bat we have our idle, and we have our sidestep animation, and we have our walk, and we've got some really nice preview. So if I drag this and just drop it into the middle here, you could see right off the bat. Now if I walk to the left, and there's these different things here, I can grab the sidestep animation, drop one here, and then another one here. And then for my, if I hold control, oops, it looks like, let me undo that for a second. Let's see, quad sidestep here. And let's kind of put this dead in the center. Now for the walk forward, we have our Quadbot walk animation. I'm just going to drop this here. Now we don't necessarily have one. See, there's our walk forward. We start to walk sidestep. We might actually have to animate. Let's see how it looks. We might end up animating a different kind of walk to the side. And actually something else we can do is, I'm going to save this for a second, is let's go in and to our animals folder, and I'm going to duplicate our, let's see, here's our walk animation. I'm going to right click and I'm going to duplicate that, and I'm going to name this walk back underscore anim, because we don't have necessarily a walk back. And if I go back into, actually into this walk back animation file, and I make this rate scale -1, you could see it's actually walking backwards now. And I'm going to save that and close this. And if we go into our Quadbot folder, where did we create? Here's our blend space. I should just drop that in there. Just keep it with our anims to be safe. And if I go inside of here, now I have a walk back that appeared, and I'm going to just drop this up here. Now when I'm holding control, you can see my character walks backwards, my character walks forwards. So it looks pretty good. I actually want to drag these down a little bit more, so the value is a little higher. Let's save that, and then let's work on cleaning this up a little bit. Okay, now you can see at the bottom we have this, these different areas where it's like, if we want to have our character walk at a specific speed or walk backwards, left to right. So you'll see here there's horizontal axis and there's vertical axis. A way that I was taught to do this is to just generally name your vertical axis acceleration. So this is how fast the character is going to move. And since your character walks left to right, or sort of you use these animations for turning, you want to name this horizontal axis here turning. And so you can see here that the name's updated. So let's save that. Now to clean up our grid, see it says grid divisions. If you make it 2, you can see it looks a lot cleaner here. It's just, and same thing here. You can see we just get this nice kind of setup, not a lot of lines that are bothersome. Now, something else that's pretty cool is if you look at the axis settings here, and under, let's see, there's some settings that we can do to make this play a little bit smoother. You know, like see how it's a little jarring. You see there's like, and that's the smoothing time they have on each one. So if we make this, I don't know, like 0.2, you can see it opens up some of this other stuff. Let's see, smoothing time here, 0.2. I mean, you're going to have to like kind of play with these just to see how it looks on your animation, but you can see that it's a little bit smoother as I move around here. All right. All right, so let's go ahead and save this again. Make sure to always check that your star is saved. And then in your Quadbot folder on that skeleton, the same skeleton that we created the blend space, right click and go to create and do animation blueprint. And we're just gonna take away the Quadbot underscore skeleton and just name this animation blueprint or AB. I think in the last one we left it as animation blueprint. So let's go ahead and open that up. And this is where we're actually going to drive our animations. If you remember last time we did with the 2D, it's going to be a little different now, like the way that we set up the scripting of this. And so let's get started. All right, so just if you remember, this is what actually runs our animation. So if I right click in here and I type in walk, and we want the output walk, Quadbot walk animation. If we have that and we just link that into here and we compile and save this, you can see it feeds it in there. And, oh, this is from the sequencer. Let's actually do a play. Let's see. Play Quadbot walk animation, sorry. We're going strong, 20 minutes on this one. But there you go. You can see that it's playing our animation. So this, think about this as as it says output pose, it's pushing the animation. So with this, we need to use that blend space and then script it so that when we press certain buttons, it'll play through the blend space. So let's do that. So let's right click and then type in BS. And here, let's type in Quadbot. There's our blueprint. You know, it might be easier if I dock this here and then I switch back over and I look for what I named our blend space. So Quadbot blend space. Okay, so let's go back in, right click, quad. I'm going to turn off context sensitive. And that helps us to find things a little bit easier. So you can see blend space, Quadbot blend space. You can see here's turning and acceleration. Now when I link this and I hit compile and save, and I can actually type, you know, whatever value, say 5 here. Actually, hold on a second. Let's go double click this and go inside of here and see what values. There's like 0 to 100 and 0 to 100. So there we go. So we need to hit 50 and 50 in order to get this to work, right? So here's our dead center. So let's close this out. So if I typed in 50 here and I hit compile and save, you can see our character on the turning is in the center point. And if I do 50 for acceleration and I compile and save this, you can see we're in our idle mode. So it reacts very much like what we set up last time. And make sure to, let's close this. You know, if you haven't done that previous tutorial and you're doing fine in this one, I would still suggest you go back and do the other one because it teaches you an alternate way of doing it with one-dimensional blend spaces. All right, so I think this is our Quadbot blend space. So if you click on that, it'll open up your blend space. And let's save this. And then I believe this is our Quadbot itself. And this is our skeleton. Let's see, where is our blueprint? So actually, let's go ahead and let's make some variables. So I'm going to make a variable here called turn rate. And we want to change this to a float because see how we have a trailing decimal there? I'm going to compile and save that. I'm going to hold I believe Alt to get that variable, and then I'm going to put it in here. Now the thing is, we're going to access this outside of the script, just like in our other character. So that's why it's important we're creating variables. And let's go ahead and turn on this I so we can access it outside of this. So let's compile and save this. And then let's make another variable here, and it should still stay float, and it did acceleration rate. And I'm going to hold control and drag this in and then lock that in like this. And let's compile and save that. And you can see here, if I select this variable, I can adjust those values like before. See how it's 50-50 and we're dead center. And then if I make my acceleration, right, we have, I make this 100. My character walks backwards. If I make it I think if I make this 0, my character will essentially walk forward, yeah. And then if I make this 0, it goes off to the side there. So really what we should do is minus 100 to 100 and minus 100 to 100, so that way, no, we'll keep it like this. All right, so let's go ahead and under acceleration rate, let's make that public too, compile and save that. And then in here, what I want is my character blueprint, because I need to, remember, we made this, here's our Quadbot animation. I really need to delete this folder up here, which, let's see, PC. Well, that is our Quadbot blueprint. So let's go ahead and open up this. We are using this, by the way. So here's our Quadbot blueprint. We need it to understand that we are using this. Here's our blend space. Let's see. We really should. Let's see. I'm trying to think of a way to make this a little bit. Here's our animation blueprint. So I'm going to just drop that in here. And so, and maybe I'll make another folder. Well, okay, so we have our blueprint and our blend space and our Quadbot animation blueprint, which is this right here. So what we need to do in our Quadbot blueprint itself is we need to tell it to use this animation blueprint. Sorry if that's a little confusing. And let's see where we can find our animation rollout. So let's just type in animation here to make life a little easier. And I think it's under, let's see, here, mesh, an animation mode, use animation blueprint, and then we want to use the animation blueprint, and then for the animation class, we want Quadbot AB. So now we've linked the mesh, and I selected mesh here to this right here. So let's compile and save that. All right, so if you remember, so we're in our Quadbot blueprint, so this can get kind of confusing. So I'm going to do this down here. We created two things, turn rate and acceleration. So in order to get the acceleration, we can use a node, which is called get actor velocity. Let's turn off get context sensitive. Or get velocity, actually. I don't think it's get actor velocity. Let's see, get velocity. There we go. And then we can get the actor's rotation. I think that's called get actor rotation. So, and what we can do is connect these two to a set of variables to access these two here. So as we move our character or rotate our character, it's going to drive these values, which are going to rotate or move our character around. So actually for now, let's make sure that these are zeroed out. Not that it matters. I don't think it's going to update, but let's compile and save this. Okay, and for some reason, oh, because they're both 0, it's here instead of 50-50. We might have to change these values. I think it might give us some trouble later. All right, so these are vectors. So if I right click on here and I hit split struct pin, you could see they have the X, Y, and Z on each one. And because we don't want to control all three at the same time, we want to only control specific values, just like we did with the camera. And then let's create some variables here. And let's make this a, come on, float. I want to make it public. And I want to name this one acceleration. And then I want to make this one called turning. Come on, computer. Compile and save that. And let's make this one public too. So what I want to do is I'm going to, if you just drag it out, for example, and you'll get and set. So we want to set the values of these. If you hold Alt and drag off, it's assuming that you want to set the values there. So I want to set the value for turning on Z. And if you remember, when our character moves, it's moving on the X and Y axis. So what we want to do is we want to add those values together and push it in here. So what I'm going to do is just hit plus and then look for plus float. And actually, I think this now will do anything. So if I drag X and Y, yeah, so it automatically turns into a float, which is pretty nice. All right, so we've got these two set up. All right, and then what we can use is this event tick here. And I think if I hold S and I click, it'll give me a sequence. Yeah, that looks good. So let's wire this in this way. And what I'm going to do is, it's just kind of going in line as I press the keys. I'm going to execute these in a specific sequence. All right, so let's compile and save this. Always double check it's saving. I don't know why that asterisk, oh, that's from the level. Okay. And then inside of here, we want to go to our animation graph, or actually our event graph here. And then what we want to do is, oh, it gave it to us by default, try get pawn owner. So we want this same value before. And what this is doing is, do you remember from this, we set up all these values in these variables? Well, because inside of here, on that character movement, we set up our animation blueprint on the side, wherever that was. I think we typed up top. By having this here, it's signifying that we want to get the information from this event graph. So let's compile and save that. So let's go ahead and cast it, which means we're going to get our quad character. So cast quad bot BP. So now we have a reference to that robot, to this right here. And so what we can do here is, if you look here, we have, remember we made the acceleration and turning variables. So in here, I can just drag this out and I can get turning. And there's that variable there. And then I can get acceleration. I don't want these. I want the variable. Oh, get acceleration rate. Actually, did we name it? No, that's this one. We don't want turning rate. We want, I named it acceleration. Yeah, we just want to get acceleration. So it was getting this variable here. So let's just type in acceleration and see what, here we go, get acceleration. Boom. And then it shows you, I don't know if you saw that, it actually showed you where it's from, where it's coming from here. So we know that it's coming from Quadbot BP. Let's compile and save that. Now what we need to do is set these. Remember, these variables here are connected to our animation graph here. So if I hold Alt, I can set the value of turn rate, which would be this one here, and then I can set the value of acceleration here. Now remember, I'm holding Alt and dragging off onto here. If you just left click and drag it, you'll have the options to set or get. And remember, setting is setting a value, which means changing the value of something, where getting is getting the value of something. Now, I want to run these kind of at the same sequence, so I'm going to hold S and click again. And I'm going to do this one and this one. And if you ever need to add a pin, it'll just add another sequence there. And then what I'll do from this event blueprint update, it'll run the sequence at startup. And we want it to fire off as well the Quadbot animation. And then what we'll do with that is we'll actually just link it this way. All right, so here's the moment of truth, and let's go back into our. This concerns me a little bit that it's here, but let's see what happens. So when I press play, you can see, yeah, it's kind of walking. But if I press D, we have our walk, but our character's never idling. And I think the problem with that is because the values of those variables from the get-go, like in our animation graph, they're both set to 0. So we either have to set them both to 50 here, but really it should just start off here if we compile and save this. Yeah, you know, it's always changing it. Let's go into our blend space and let's just change this so that instead of 0 and 0, it goes from minimum value minus 100. And so we get a range, and then let's see, minimum minus 100. And then we can just kind of drag these where we need them to be like this. And now it always sits dead center because we are going from minus 100 to 100. You see what I'm saying? Like we're not going from 0 to 100. So it's always set at 0, like the variable values. So do this the best I can. So if I save it now, and I go back and I press play, we should be starting off. This doesn't seem right. Let's see. Why is it doing this? Is this... Oh, compile and save. It's still reading at 0 and 100. Save? Let's see. It seems to be... It seems like this did not... let's see, Quadbot blend space. You know what? This might be sort of a bug, I guess. Let me delete this. Right click and do quad. Let's just type in blend space. Blend space, Quadbot blend space. And let's link this here. And then... and compile and save it. Oh, there we go. Yeah, it updated. So now when we press play, so let that be a lesson that, like, I mean, we really don't have a back. I don't know why but we should adjust the speed. But now we have full controls with our camera moving around with our Quadbot character. And if we, let's save this level 2. So I'm going to hit Control S. And my default level is level 01 complete. So you can see Untitled became that. Now here's the other thing to check. If you want to switch between characters, if you remember, I believe it was inside of here. No, it was our world. Oh no. Let's see. Player start. Yeah, I believe it's our player. Yeah, player start and details. Actually, I think what I'm looking for is if you go into world setting, here we go, game mode base. If we click on that and we change it from Quadbot to Robot 244 game mode base, now when I press play, you can see we can load in either of those game mode bases. So we can switch between our 2D character, and then I can switch back to my Quadbot. And if I press play, you can see now I'm Quadbot. And it looks like it's not playing my forward to back animation correctly. It's always kind of playing this one. So let's actually take a quick one last look at our Quadbot blend space. If I hold control here and I move this down, he walks forward, he walks back, left, right. Here's dead center. Let's save this. Actually, if I go down, I'm going negative. I think turning point up, minimum value, maximum value. So actually, it was a matter of me not saving it. So if I press play again, you can see as I walk. But the thing is it goes left and right. If I push forward, you can see here my character is still playing that side. So We're going to have to edit this in a future video. We're already at 40 minutes and I need to break this video up. So in future ones, I'll break it into smaller 5-minute increments. For now, this is it. And then I'll go back in and I'll tweak these values in a future video.